This fresh coat of the startup life has been sprayed on nice and smooth by Wagner and the Flexio series of paint sprayers. Startup Nation, my wife decided she wanted to rehab her childhood home. The goal was to fix it up and invite a nice family to rent it out. We knew one of the biggest jobs we had to undertake was painting. However, from the walls, the cabinets, and even the siding outside, it was going to be a big task. As entrepreneurs with a company to run, we knew this was going to take up a lot of our time, which is why we decided to get a paint sprayer. And after much research, we decided to go with the sprayer from the Flexio series from Wagner. Startup Nation, these sprayers are top-notch because of its flexibility to paint or stain walls, furniture, cabinets, and more. It's 10 times faster than using a paintbrush, which was a big selling point for us. And you can paint or stain right from the can. It's also easy to clean in 5 minutes, and being great for indoor and outdoor projects, a paint sprayer from the Flexio series clearly needs to be part of the arsenal in your garage. So if you're ready to stain your deck, or like me, fill your daughter's request of a bubblegum pink room, up your game with a paint sprayer from the Flexio series by Wagner. Take it from me, your time will thank you.
It's time to be about that life, the startup life. Here's your host, Dominic Lawson.
All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. My name is Dominic Lawson, and this is The Startup Life, the show for entrepreneurs and career-minded professionals. You know, Startup Nation, about 20, 30 years ago, when you talked about cannabis, it was kind of like the dirty word in the room. But over the past couple of years, that stigma has kind of started to kind of melt away a little bit, and you're starting to see brands and companies kind of take advantage of that. And one of the amazing brands at the forefront of that is AutumnBrands.com. We have a link there in the show notes for easy access if you're listening to the replay on the podcast. And we have the amazing founder and chief financial officer of Autumn Brands, Autumn Shelton. Autumn, how are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries. We're so glad to have you on the show. If you would, just kind of share your origin story and your background, if you don't mind.
Sure. So Autumn Brands is two families that own and operate the business.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into cannabis under the medical model
right.
A little over 5 years ago, and then transitioned into the regulated market in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the Autumn of Autumn Brands, and I have my three partners. Their last name is Brand, and so that's where Autumn Brands came about. My background is more in real estate, and then I became the financial controller, CFO for my then boss, now partner.
Mm-hmm.
He owns the property where we cultivate, and he used to do cut flowers, and that industry has been struggling for a long time with all the competition from South America.
Right.
And when he got an opportunity to lease out some greenhouses for medical marijuana, we did a lot of risk assessment and decided it would be a good idea for him. And then shortly after that, decided we should do our own. So that's where we kind of came about and kind of transitioned into this. And so we do have 4 co-owners, and that have really been able to help us look at this industry in different ways. It's my partner and his 2 kids who graduated college in the last couple of years. So we all bring really a unique set of skills. My husband is also very much involved. He's our brand manager and for all our retail side. And they're the mom and wife of my partners also is involved. So
gotcha.
We really try to continue being very family owned and operated, even though we are continuing to grow and have over 75 employees at this point. And but we focus on sustainability. All our water is reused and recycled. All of our plant organic waste is all reused and recycled. And most importantly, we are 100% pesticide free.
Gotcha.
So, in the state of California, they have very, very small limits of what you can do, but you can still use pesticides. And for us, about 3 years ago, we made the determination that, even a little bit of pesticides is harmful. And we really wanted to be able to produce a product that was, completely natural for our consumer. And I think this is the path where we're going anyway. As we saw a shift from conventional agriculture to organic agriculture, getting away from pesticides, because pesticides, it could say organic, but they're still using pesticides.
Right.
So this is really the future of getting away from pesticides altogether.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate all of that. And I want to ask about the organic part and the pesticides, not using the pesticides a little bit later. But I want to ask you something that you talked about. You talked about going into this business with different many mindsets, different ways. Kind of dive into that a little bit more, because I'm fascinated about that. Because, you're talking about, cannabis, there's usually only kind of one type of mindset, but kind of talk about those different ways and those different mindsets and those different type of perspectives that everybody brings to the table.
Well, my partner's been a farmer for over 30 years, or
Gotcha.
I actually say even longer. He is from Holland originally, and he's a 5th generation farmer, and now his kids are 6th generation farmers, and they both studied agriculture. One studied business and the other started growing techniques. And so they were able to really bring in a whole new set of education and skills that brought a lot of fresh ideas to how we do things and how we process. My background is compliance. I handle all the compliance for the company, financials, and also oversee all the human resources as we're growing. So, we all kind of come in with different backgrounds. My husband's customer service side. So, customer service is really important for us, and being there for our consumers if something goes wrong, or if they have any questions or concerns, or just love to tell us how it actually helped them. So, we all kind of came out with just really different ways of how we view business and how we operate, and it's allowed us to really grow this company successfully and at our own pace. We're all very frugal people as well, and so we like to grow within our means. We are still self-funded and continue just to grow as we can.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you this, because, you talked about, wearing many different hats and stuff like that. And I know that in the cannabis space, there's still a federal ban on it. I know there's not as many restrictions in California. I believe it's free to use in California from a recreational standpoint as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So, but from a federal standpoint, do you find any limitations from the business, or, are you just doing well in California? I guess what I'm asking is kind of talk about that part, because I know, with a lot of businesses, there's not as many regulations, but with something like this, it's a little different. Kind of talk about that and some of those challenges, if you don't mind.
Sure. The biggest issues with it still being federally illegal, one is banking for a lot of people in this industry. They still can't, and in the beginning too, we handled a lot of cash, but we were able to get a bank account about a year and a half ago. It did about 6 months of compliance and proving that we were a legitimate business, and we continue to be one. Mm-hmm. So we're very fortunate to have banking. However, we still get, some. It doesn't go all the way down the supply chain, right? So we still get paid in cash by certain distributors.
I'm sorry, really quickly, is that one that's just based in California, or is it actually one that's like a national bank, or is it just one based in California?
It's a credit union.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a lot of these bigger federal ones, yes, they won't touch it still. Right. It's really the credit unions they're putting together these programs. They're still all FDIC insured though as well, but if they follow a certain protocol, then they can continue to do this.
Gotcha.
But they still are filing federally when the cash goes directly to the Federal Reserve,
of course,
from our company. So it is all tracked and they watch, and the banks now are looking at they'll look at Metric, which is the state's chosen track and trace system, which a number of states actually use it. I'm not sure I think Colorado does too, maybe.
Right.
So banking is one of the issues, but luckily for us, it's not as impactful anymore because we do have a bank account. The other really, really impactful federal legal aspect of it is a tax code called 280E. And 280E does not allow you to write off normal expenses in your business because it is still a Schedule I drug.
Gotcha.
So that is the hardest part. So anything like your legal fees, any of these license fees, anything that is not touching the plant, you cannot deduct So you are paying way more taxes than anybody else. And that makes it very hard for a business to succeed. Again, you have to be very smart with how you calculate your finances and how you handle it. Every single month I go through a exercise of that I could file a tax return that day, and I know exactly how much I owe in taxes,
For sure.
just based on that knowledge, because you can't just assume you can write everything off
For sure.
normal.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate that transparency, because Startup Nation, I know many of you have asked questions about, this space, and which is why we're so grateful for Autumn to come on the show. But I want to kind of share and wanted to see what those challenges were. So that way you may be experiencing, some similar things as you try to go forth in the cannabis space. I was asking about the banking part because I remember I was a banker in Colorado, and I remember we had to close down a lot of different bank accounts for that very reason. So I was curious about, but this was like 10 years ago. So I wanted to see if there was any kind of movement or change in that regard. Go ahead. You sound like you're about to say something.
Yeah, banks are definitely still shutting down accounts or personal accounts.
Right.
If they see your name in the paper, even if it's not an account that's associated with cannabis, they'll shut you down if you're putting too much cash into it. So say you're a landlord collecting cash from a cannabis tenant, you're going to struggle with having a bank account even for that.
Oh, wow.
Because the majority of your income is coming in as cannabis, and a normal big bank will close you without reason.
Gotcha. So you mean to tell me it's not even just from a direct standpoint, but like from an indirect standpoint, if you have from that part, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting. Right. That's very interesting. I want to ask you this because before you kind of got into this space, you kind of talked about this a little bit, but did you have any reservations at all, from the beginning? And was there any point where your mindset about cannabis kind of changed? Kind of talk about your own personal perspective about cannabis. Cause when you talk about stuff like this, many different people have many different perspectives on it.
Well, we saw the opportunity, and that's why we got involved.
Gotcha.
But we got involved in the medical marijuana side, the collective model. And that was still very gray. I mean, you hear a helicopter go over, you're like,
fair enough.
I mean, because you have all the paperwork in place and you have a collective and you've done it all, but it's still very gray at that point. And so, yes, that was still a very nerve-wracking time in deciding whether or not to get involved. But we were very much involved at the state and at the local level for creating these ordinances and regulations, and really being a part of the public comment process to ensure that this would function for businesses in the future. But as we transitioned and we got into the regulated market and we got a license by the state, in January of 2018, when that all shifted into this really regulated market, it just feels like a business. Gotcha. And so, no, we don't look over our shoulder anymore. We're not worried about it. Our from day one, we're business people, and we just want to create, a successful business for our families and for ourselves to be able to continue just to grow as entrepreneurs and create something for our children. For sure. No, I definitely understand that. Let me ask you this, because, we're not only talking about, cannabis, but one thing that is kind of, accepted, on a national federal level is like CBD and stuff like that. And I imagine there's some competition, with other cannabis brands and CBD. Kind of talk about how you differentiate, what's that competitive advantage, that unique value proposition that you're able to kind of, offer to your customers that say, we're better than the competition. I guess I'm curious about how you brand, how you get the word out about Autumn Brands. Well, like you're saying, this is a very tough industry to be in, because not only, are we trying to grow a plant, you're cultivating a plant that is, grows like a weed, but it doesn't grow well like a weed. Right. So you first have that aspect. And then you have to, and we didn't even create a brand until, about halfway through 2018, because we didn't know what the consumer wanted. So really trying to figure out what kind of packaging were they looking for. We started out with a different logo in the very beginning and a very different look. And that's developed over time as we've kind of understood that this is more of a health and wellness type of product. Right. And, but being different and creating a brand in any industry is very challenging, and especially in one that's so limited. And that's the other part of it being federally legal is we're so limited with the number of retailers. We're stuck with only within California. Nothing can go outside your own state,
right?
And you can't ship online. So that would be the difference of like a hemp product versus a cannabis product. Whereas hemp, you can buy it on Amazon and you can do things like that. But cannabis and hemp are just very different.
Of course.
The people that want THC, there's a different reasoning, and the CBD is kind of opening people's mind up, I think, a little bit more and understanding it. But most people don't understand that we have the endocannabinoid system in our bodies, and cannabis itself helps regulate our bodies, and that's why it's been so helpful medically, or just for people that need to kind of relax at the end of a day or be creative. So cannabis itself is something that's just really, really wonderful for our bodies. And hemp, which is predominantly CBD and then other cannabinoids, it has really great benefits to it as well.
Right.
But the THC is something that we actually have the natural receptor for. And that's the one that's really going to help you with pain. That's the one that's going to help you kind of sleep a little bit better. So THC is very, very important. It's not just about getting high and I think that's what people just have had this stigma and mentality around. So there's a big difference there between the hemp world and the cannabis world. And then within the cannabis world, for us to stand out and be different than other brands, it's just people that know who we are. And as I said, we're two families, and everything that we do is, hand trimmed, hand selected, hand processed. So for us, and we're 100% pesticide free. So we are just going to be honest with who we are and always try to be as consistent as we possibly can and provide, a very natural product that people know is based, on health and wellness. And that's what helps us stand out, I think.
For sure. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the part about, just being honest with who you are and standing on the health and wellness part. Cause I think that's definitely a great, unique qualifier or unique proposition, if you will, because like you said, like there is that stigma about like always just getting high, but we've seen countless of press releases and studies that like we've, because you said so yourself, you got in it from a medical standpoint at first. We've seen countless of stories of people finding more success with cannabis than they do with like regular pharmaceuticals in that regard, depending on certain, illnesses and stuff like that. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible plant. It really is very magical, and we love when we get emails from people saying, "I love your flower. It's changed my life. It's the only thing that gets me through." It's an incredible feeling. But yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of brands out there that have big money. They got big investments. They have a huge marketing budget. I remember when we started, a distributor told us we need to spend 20% on marketing of our revenue. And I was like, whoa, that's, that can disappear quickly as well, since you can't write any of that off.
Right.
And so you see these big companies, and we're not one of them. We don't have a huge marketing budget, but we have spent a lot of time doing interviews and really kind of getting the message out, and being able to, just educate as much as we possibly can about why this is a great plant, why our product is different, and why cannabis itself, is really important for this stigma to really just, continue to disappear. So that's where we, really try to get out there.
All right, Startup Nation. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We got to pay some bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson, and you're listening to The Startup Life. Check it out, Startup Nation. I know many of you are trying to improve your marketing performance, right? You have your business or your e-commerce store and you're trying to increase that brand awareness. No worries, I got you. You should listen to the brand new Keep Optimizing podcast. That's optimizing with an S and not a Z. It's a marketing podcast that will provide you with not only the latest tips and advice in the game, but also you will hear from experts in their field when it comes to email marketing, SEO, and more. This is a must-listen-to podcast for my e-commerce entrepreneurs. It's hosted by Chloe Thomas, who is a 15-year marketing expert, best-selling author, and award-winning podcast host. It's already a top 20 marketing podcast in 7 countries, so clearly you're going to get amazing value every episode. So as you can see, Startup Nation, you're in good hands with my girl CT. So listen and subscribe to the Keep Optimizing podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you like to get your favorite podcast. You can also get more information at keepoptimizing.com. The link is there in the show notes. Oralex powers this episode of The Startup Life. Startup Nation, as a podcaster, radio host, and business owner, I know a thing or two about the need for your message to come through clearly to your target audience. The last thing you want when trying to close a big deal over the phone or giving a sales presentation in your conference room is to have the person you are talking to be distracted by either the fact that you sound like you're in a warehouse or an outside noise like a fire truck. Trust me, Startup Nation, I know this all too well from experience. And that is why Oralex has your back. Oralex Acoustics creates professionally tested products that you can trust in a commercial space or at home. Better office acoustics improves intelligibility when video conferencing or generic conversation, reduces stress, and helps build a proactive work atmosphere. From a home studio for my content creators to your office space downtown, your gear performs better in an acoustically treated room. Trust me, you are in good hands with Oralex, as they are the #1 brand in acoustics, providing trusted solutions for over 40 years. Also, you can download the Oralex Acoustic Treatment mobile app in the Apple or Google Play Store to give you specifically designed and instantaneous recommendations for various room types. Go to Oralex.com and use the promo code STARTUP in all caps for 10% off your entire order. The link is there in the show notes if you are listening to the replay on the podcast. So if you are ready to stop sounding like you're having a sales meeting in a sports arena, go with Oralex. Professional audio made simple. Tresta powers this episode of The Startup Life. Okay, Startup Nation, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Tresta. Tresta is an app for iPhone and Android that lets you do business calling and texting from anywhere. I know so many entrepreneurs that are still using their personal phone number for business calls. It can get complicated drawing the line between your personal and professional life. Startup Nation, this is the best business phone app out there. Whether you just need a business phone number or if your team is ready for a complete business phone system, Tresta is totally flexible and can grow with your business. And it's all unlimited calling, texting, and all of the powerful call management features like auto attendance, call recording, user groups, and more for just $15 per user per month. With Tresta, there's no contract, and you don't need any special hardware, just your smartphone you're already using. Tresta is easy to configure, so you can set everything up yourself, all online, avoiding all the hassle and high overhead costs of setting up a traditional business phone system, which is important because as entrepreneurs, we are always trying to cut cost and time. They're offering a 30-day free trial so you can see if Tresta's virtual phone system is right for you. Communicate smarter and more efficiently with Tresta. Start now at Tresta.com/startuplife. That's TRESTA.com/startuplife. The link is there in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast. Tresta, business communication simplified. All right, Startup Nation, welcome back as we continue our conversation with today's guest here on The Startup Life. Gotcha. And I love that you said that, Autumn. Startup Nation, I hope you caught that. Like, maybe you don't have the treasure chest or the war chest of capital to spend on marketing, but what you can do is do stuff, like she said, do interviews, do other type of press things. I think it just goes to show that, when there's not a traditional way, you make a way. So I appreciate, all of that, Autumn, for sure. And one last question about the stigma, if you don't mind me asking, because, it like I said, we said at the top of the show, it seems like the stigma may be changing a little bit. Like, it's still considered a Schedule I, a drug at the federal level, but we are seeing at the local municipalities, like the certain type of ordinances and things kind of either relaxing or even legalizing, if you will, cannabis and stuff like that. Let me ask you this. Do you see a day where cannabis is legalized at the federal level? And do you kind of, see that happening, maybe 5 years, 10 years? Kind of give your take on that, if you don't mind.
We've always we've always kind of seen it coming that at the federal level, it would definitely one day be, taken off the Schedule 1 list. But it's political. And right now, I mean, anything, if Biden gets into office in a matter of weeks, then yes, I think we have a chance that in the next couple of years, it could certainly be taken off the Schedule 1.
Mm-hmm.
If we have another 4 years of Trump, then no, it's going to be a while before we can see some movement there, because there's just still such a pushback with certain political leaders that just don't want to see it happen, and that's really unfortunate, because as every state is showing that how important this plant is, and as each state is legalizing, they have to understand at some point here that it's very important. But it's all political,
right?
And making that decision whether or not to legalize it.
For sure. I think a lot of people who have that stigma, I think they still have the movie Reefer Madness on the brain. So, and think that's kind of what it is. But, like I said, I see stories and hear stories all the time of people like, I've had this condition, whether it be like, epilepsy or something. Like I had this condition for years and years and years. And I started, engaging with, the cannabis, if you will. And then it's like all of a sudden, like they have a better quality of life. And so, I just think that, I think we're going to get there one day. It's just like you said, it's extremely political, and, and I think one day we'll get there. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
What? Oh yeah. I was going to say the same. One day it'll happen, and it might be where 280E, goes away first. There's a big fight right now. I know I've heard some really powerful stories of, kids have epilepsy, and their parents have had to move out of the state where they live to be able to go move to a state where they could get the medicine. But what it does is, even if the kid lives in a state where they can have their medicine, they can't get on a plane and fly with it. And so they can never leave where they live. And so there's some really powerful stories out there of why this is just so important on so many different levels to make this legal. So I really do hope to see some movement in the future, but I think we've made more progress in the last 5 years than we had in 20 years. For sure. So we're moving forward. That's for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Once again, Startup Nation, we're talking to Autumn Shelton, partner and chief financial officer of AutumnBrands. I want to ask you this because, you talked about earlier about the culture there. You have 75 employees there. Kind of talk about, the morale that's been, there at the company during the era of COVID, because I imagine there's been a few changes, a few shifts due to the pandemic. Kind of talk about that a little bit. I mean, yes, it was pretty incredible that, cannabis was deemed essential. I mean, that's also a really huge step moving forward here with eliminating the stigma. But, for us, I was on maternity leave, was in the office for 6 weeks, and then COVID happened. And so then I ended up coming home and working from home, but the farm continued. Right. And it was pretty incredible. My partners, instantly joined forces with other nonprofits and created a new nonprofit in where we are at Carpinteria in California, and called the 93013 Fund, and really got together and collected money to give to all the people that have been hurt by the pandemic. We instantly, along with other cannabis growers in town, started buying lunches for our employees 3 days a week. Because even though they had jobs, their family members had lost their jobs during the time. And so we also, wanted to be able to feed our employees, but also help the local restaurants keep the lights on. So we put together a whole program that rotated among a number of different restaurants in town that we would buy from, because community is also just truly, really important to us. Because without your community, you're flying solo there. So being able to give back during that time, we also had to implement, of course, new strict protocols within the company. One employee turned over just being full-time sanitizing, so all day long, and she still continues to do that. All she does is sanitize all the every single surface. I have the shiniest doorknob. I joke about. And we've got one of those temperature kiosks. So whenever somebody comes in, they need to take their temperature.
Right.
Of course, everyone needs to wear a mask at all times if they're going to be within someone that's 6 feet. And we had to change lunch periods and meal periods so that people aren't all together as well. So there's been some big shifts in how you operate, but it's all doable. And the employees are still continue to be happy. They're happy that they have jobs. We just gave everyone huge raises in June, so everyone also was very excited.
Right.
And and it's very important, like I mentioned, being family run, that we try to keep that going. And every month we normally would have a barbecue and all come together. And unfortunately, we can't do that now, but we'll still celebrate the birthdays, and everybody gets a card, and we'll we'll buy everyone lunches at the end of every single month just to celebrate that time.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. You talked about this. Kind of talk about the family oriented part of it. Like, how does that work as far as, like, you talked about being working with a whole nother family. Kind of talk about how you guys, work through things like maybe disagreements, maybe different perspectives. Cause different perspectives brings different mindsets. So kind of talk about how you guys work through those disagreements or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. It's very important for, partners to come together and communicate how they're feeling and then come to a compromise. And, in all honesty, it's 3 family members and me sometimes. And so you're kind of like, but we just have such an incredible dynamic that really hasn't ever come into play. And we're able just to come and sit together, and we have monthly meetings, owners meetings. We'll have a working lunch and come with our list of things that we want to get done or accomplish. And we don't always agree,
right.
But sometimes we just going to have to say, okay, we need to come to a compromise on this, and this is what's going to be best for the company. And so far that's been really great for us.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing that. Startup Nation, when you go to AutumnBrands.com and go to the press mention page, you'll see that Autumn Brands has been featured on all over the place. CNBC, Yahoo Finance, the Santa Barbara Independent, all over the place. And you talked about this earlier as far as like getting the word out. Kind of, when you're going into an interview like that, what are you trying to hit home with? Like, what do you really want the audience to know about the brand? Is it just awareness? Is it just about what you do? Is it all of the above? Just kind of talk about that strategy a little bit, because we have a lot of people who are trying to get the word out as far as their businesses and stuff like that. And we're always interested in people's mindsets when it comes to that. Kind of share that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah. It's all about, our key core values and who we are.
Gotcha.
Another top one that I hadn't mentioned yet is, we're 50% women owned,
right.
And half our employee and workforce and management are all pretty much almost 50% women as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important for women in this industry to be able to communicate how they're able to be successful, because this is a new industry that has no glass ceiling. And there's so many other industries where women have really struggled to be able to work their way up. And, we are so grateful that we are in this position and able to be entrepreneurs and own our own business and provide that opportunity to other women as well. And this is really a health and wellness product, as I mentioned,
right.
And women are really important for that. Women are the ones that are truly normally in a household, the decision makers on what kind of health and wellness products they're going to buy.
Right.
And we also tease this plant is, you want only the female plants. The males are the ones that produce the seeds. The females plants are the ones that produce the flower.
Fair enough.
And so all our plants are ladies. And so you walk through the greenhouses and say good morning to the ladies. So, being 50% women owned and operated is also really important. And also with an ownership of being able to create a balanced company, that's also, I think, really allowed us to be successful as 4 partners and always making really good decisions for the company as well. And of other aspects, like I mentioned, being 100% pesticide free is not easy. It is very hard. It is
right.
very expensive. We have a very well developed beneficial insect program where we do bring in bugs to combat the bad bugs. But we also, because it is such a natural environment, have have these ladybugs that are native. So the ones that have like the dots on them, that the normal ones you see, those are not actually native. They're ones that don't have the spots of the native ones. And those have come into our greenhouse and they just lay baby after baby, which is larva. And they just create also this amazing environment. So, being 100% pesticide free is not only by producing a natural product for the consumer, but creating this just perfect environment in our greenhouses.
Gotcha.
So that our plants do thrive and that end product does show in the end.
Gotcha. And I said we was going to talk about this, later, but we're back at it now. Kind of talk about that. Why is that important to be pesticide free? Because I imagine, that would make things a lot easier for you. Kind of talk about why that piece is important. That integrity piece of being pesticide free is so important.
Being pesticide free, you don't know, it's one thing to have a pesticide sprayed on a piece of lettuce that you may not, that you're not going to heat up.
Right.
But cannabis is something that we heat up. And I think there's still a lot of research around these pesticides that when you do heat them up, how toxic are they for you? And so by us not using any whatsoever, we can guarantee that they're not going to, no consumer is going to receive that toxic chemical in their products. And people were smoking pot for years and years, right? And they were buying it on the traditional market, and who knows what was sprayed and what was used, and no one really thought about it. So this is a whole new way of really kind of looking at it and what we put in our bodies. And it truly is important, because more and more people get cancer, more and more people end up with diseases and ailments. And so anything that you're going to put into your body is just so important that it is as natural as it possibly can be.
Got you. Thank you. Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, but and it's hard though. Our plants don't always look picture perfect, but it's not what the plant, on the outside looks like. It's really what the flower and the buds really end up being. And that's what's really important to us. We sometimes have to throw away thousands of plants because they, the bad pests just took over and we just were not able to get it. And if we did spray just a little bit of pesticide, we could have got rid of it in a heartbeat and saved those plants. But, for us, it's worth losing some plants to really provide that product to our consumer.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing that and being transparent about that. Once again, Startup Nation, we're actually wrapping up with Autumn Shelton, the partner and chief financial officer of AutumnBrands. And if you want to check out the website, we have the link there in the show notes for easy access. Just remember, depending on where you are, you're not able to purchase due to a federal ban on marijuana. But at the very least, you can kind of check out the website and see what they're all about. Now, you talked about being on maternity leave not too long ago. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is in order. Kind of talk about balancing, being a mom and a wife and a business owner. Kind of talk about that lifestyle. And I kind of hear it a little bit already, but kind of talk about that a little bit.
Deep breath. Yes, it is not easy.
Gotcha.
I have an almost 5-year-old, and I have now she's going to turn 1 in a couple weeks. So, being a full-time working mom and having 2 small children is definitely very challenging.
Right.
And finding that balance amongst all of it. And, I just try to make sure I always take a little time, like this morning, to sit and, read a few stories, because sometimes it's just easy to go and be in task mode and, and then get home and be exhausted and not have anything left. But finding that balance, is really important. And I try to do the best that I can and be there for both my children, and my husband and myself. And cannabis can help with that too. Sometimes, if I need to go, I like to smoke a joint and go for a run, because I kind of get that get out of my head and just, let everything go, and then come back and then I can just be the best mom I can be after that. So yeah, it's always a balancing act. My mom was a full-time working mom. So, I saw it as a child, and I can feel, what you need sometimes, as a child, and so I try to really have that awareness, from my childhood and be able to give more to my children when they need it.
Gotcha. What's that, as they see you, running the business and stuff like that, what is that one thing you hope that they learn from you, and that they carry, as they grow older and become their own people? What is that one thing you hope they learn from you that they kind of implement into their lifestyle?
I hope they have a strong work ethic. I hope they,
Gotcha.
really see how important it is to give yourself 100% to whatever you're doing. So in that moment of going to work and being a part of this company and helping making it successful, that I'm 100% there. And then when I'm home and I'm with them, that, phones go away, that time is 100% then with them. And so really being able to help them see that, the value of a job and the value of running a company, but also the value of family time as well, and finding that balance.
I hear that. That family time part is so important. That's one of the things myself have to do better about, not always be in taskmaster mode. So I definitely understand that for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. And before I ask the last question, Autumn, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the Startup Life. You gave us tremendous value and insight into not only your company, but the cannabis industry and space, if you will. I think a lot of our audience is going to definitely get some value from our conversation. But now I'm going to turn the microphone over to you, because given everything that's going on, people are feeling a little discouraged, feeling a little down. Give us some words of encouragement to take us out for today, if you don't mind.
This too shall pass.
I hear that.
We all go through a lot of tough times in our life. And who knew a pandemic was coming? Who knew that the fires, down here in Santa Barbara, we got hit hard by the fires and the mudslides back in the end of 2017, 2018.
Right.
And now I know all these people in, Northern California are going through it all over again. And all the other natural disasters all across the United States, with hurricanes and tornadoes and whatnot. But
right.
We just always have to know that tomorrow's a new day, and we will find joy and find happiness again. And even within, a stressful time or a hard moment, we'd all just need to kind of take a deep breath and just know that everything will be okay.
For sure. Awesome stuff. And that's going to wrap up this session of the Startup Life. We want to once again thank Autumn Shelton, partner and chief financial officer of AutumnBrands. Thank you so much, Autumn.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
No worries. And as always, Startup Nation, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life. If you want to let us know what you think about our show, have an idea for a show topic, or would like to advertise on our show, send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a great way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is there in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or even on your Facebook timeline or any other platform you like to get your podcast. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. You can also listen to the show on the Startup Life Podcast new website. There you will find the all-new startup blog, where I write on many topics that are interesting and helpful to you on your path to entrepreneurship. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life.